Episode 190, Honoring Our Adult Children's Choices with Brooke Oniki.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
Young parents get a lot of empathy and understanding from others when they are in the thick of the often physically demanding job of being a parent to small, energetic children. Parents of teenagers also get empathy for what can often be a taxing emotional season of parenting. But an often overlooked group of parents are those whose children have left the home, and how these parents are learning to adjust their parenting style of being full-time caregivers to more of a mentor role that sometimes their children appreciate and sometimes they don't. Coach Brooke Oniki is back on the podcast today sharing some wise points as to what parents need to do in order to be better parents to adult children so they can let their children develop and grow away from them as well as maintain a healthy and thriving relationship with them. Brooke has such a great perspective on parents in this stage of life, so be sure to listen and then reach out to her and have her help you become more independent from your children. We promise your adult children will thank you. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the podcast today, everybody. Welcome to those who have been here before and welcome to those who might be new. We are glad you're here with us, and I am glad to be joined today by Coach Brooke Oniki. Hello, Brooke.
Hi.
So good to have you. Brooke's been on a couple times before. In fact, I was just telling her that I quoted her yesterday when I was talking to somebody. So she's always got good quotable things. So listen up, everybody. There's some good wisdom that's going to be shared.
Maybe it's just because when you're in the thick of the thing that you're teaching other people, right? You're living it and you're experiencing it. So I have lots of personal examples of what to do right and what I've done wrong.
Oh, isn't it the truth? Well, I'm glad you're willing to share those things with us. So thanks for being here with me today. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Before we get started, I will have Brooke do what I always do and ask her to introduce herself. Though, like I said, she's been on before. You may have heard it before, but we can never hear too much about people. So, Brooke, give us a little snippet.
My name is Brooke Oniki, and I'm the mother of 4 grown children. My kids, they're all starting to have their birthdays now. So they'll be 27, 25, 23, and 21 this year. So all of them are away from home. We've been empty nesters for a little while. I actually have one daughter and her husband who are staying for the summer with us. But as they started leaving home, that's when I started realizing, wait, this is terrible. Like, what's going on? I invested all of this time and energy and love and like everything I knew to do to be a good mother to them. And then they just start leaving, and it felt super hard for me. And so then I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I learned about coaching. And so I've been coaching for almost 5 years now. And that's who I coach, are women who are transitioning from having kids at home to having adult kids and learning how to make those relationships good and meaningful, and also have a good relationship with yourself, so that you're not so needy. Because what we tend to do is like then think, okay, well, now I'm going to throw everything into my grandmotherhood, or I'm going to go visit them all the time, which you can do that, right? But you could also, there are other options as well. And so that's some of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today, is learning how to not chase your kids. Because that's what I coach on a lot. People say, like, I call them and I text them and I say, can we come visit? And they keep saying, well, maybe now's not a good time, or maybe in a couple of months. And people fret like, oh, they live near their in-laws and they spend so much time with them and they're not spending any time with us. And people just get a lot of scarcity around those relationships with their kids. And so today I'm going to just share some ways to bring that down to a place that feels better, so that you're not feeling frantic about
Good.
where you're headed.
I love it. I mean, it is a big change. It's a big change. But this is what I have found in my experience is that your kids also, when they start to leave, they don't communicate very much, at least in my experience. And so you kind of fill in those gaps and you like make up the story in your head about what's happening for them because they're not really telling you.
Right.
And you make it mean a whole lot of really funny things, I think.
Right.
So
We love
the
to
more,
catastrophize, right? Like,
yes,
oh, it means
yes.
that instead of just thinking, oh, they have lots of things going on and
Yep.
they're learning a bunch and their social calendar is really important to them and right, they just have a lot of
Yep.
things that they're experimenting with their own
Hmm.
adulthood, right? And
Yeah.
we can learn how to not make it mean that they don't love us or care about us or aren't interested in the relationship. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
so we'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
We're so great at making it mean all the things about us when in actuality, it really has nothing to do with us, what their world and what they're doing. So anyway, this is going to be great. So let's just dive right in. You talked about that. You said, we're going to talk today about how to kind of just be you and not try to like have to chase after our kids all the time. So what do you got for us? Because I know there's people listening going, okay, I really need to know this.
I was talking with a client on Tuesday and she was saying like when my daughter, so she has two sons and a daughter, and she said when my daughter moved several states away, she said I just was so worried about her, forgetting about me or our relationship shifting. So that if she would call, it wouldn't matter what was going on. I would always answer the call. I would just bend over backwards to be available for her. And she said, and lately I've just started thinking, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. And we compared it to like trying to keep dating a guy who doesn't want to date you anymore, right? You just get so needy, like, oh no, he doesn't like me as much as I like him. And maybe if I did this or went here or wore my hair like this or wore these clothes or made this food or do you know what I mean? Or been, maybe if I
Hmm.
was more interesting, maybe if I was more fun, maybe if I was more supportive, right? We just start like trying to do all these things because it feels so frantic that we're going to lose something. And yet he didn't ever belong to us to begin with, first of all, right? And if he doesn't want to be with us, why would we want to chase after him? Like, what do we think we're going to get from that relationship? And she just started laughing. She's like, that's exactly how it feels. And yet she knows, like, I love this daughter of mine. And that relationship is solid, right? Like, we have a relationship of love, and I'm always going to love her. So, in that way, it's not at all like the boyfriend, right? But we
Hmm.
sometimes treat it like that, like it's running away. And so I've got to frantically chase after it. But when we can get more grounded in, like, I'm right here and they'll come when they want and they'll tell me that about the things they want to tell me about and not be so frantic. That helps us be more like comfortable to be around, right?
Hmm.
Like the needier we get, the faster they run, right? When we're like counting how long it's been since they've called and then they do call and then we say, "You haven't called me for 3 weeks." And it's like, "Well, now I don't want to talk to you even today." Right?
Hmm.
Like when we're
It's going to be 4 weeks next time.
exactly, because we're getting so like, well, or people will say to me, "Well, I've just decided I'm not going to call them if they're not calling me." And just that kind of stuff, right? Where we're trying to count
Hmm.
like how much effort have I made versus how much effort they've made. And so I found, so number one tip is have your own stuff. Have your own things that you're interested in, your own things that you care about, so that when your kids come around, you have things that are important to you that you're learning and ways that you're growing that you can share with them, and then you can be interested in how they're growing and learning
Hmm.
and believing that like they have a lot of things going on and I'm right here, right? And it's not like I'm a doormat, but like I find I can tell the intent that I have when I'm reaching out to them by whether or not I care if they respond. Like if I wake in the morning, up in the morning and I just think about one of my daughters and I'm like, I just I'm thinking about her today. I'll just send her a text. And when it's coming from love, I forget I text her. I forget that I had texted her, right? Because I just sent it off to her in love. But when I do it from some neediness, then I'm like, she hasn't even responded. Why hasn't she like, why doesn't she care? Right. And so I
Mhm.
just have to notice the intent with which I'm reaching out to my kids. And if it's from a place of neediness, then I have to go like, what do I need right now? Because they might respond and fill my need, but they may not. And if they don't, like, can I learn how to fill my needs in other ways, right? Can I connect with Heavenly Father in my prayers or in my scripture study? Can I connect with a friend on a walk? Can I connect with my husband by having a conversation with him? Can I bring my emotional regulation to a place that feels better, right? If I'm feeling frantic, like even just breathing and talking to myself, like it feels a little hurtful that they haven't called for a couple weeks. I can see why you would feel sad about that, right? I can validate my feeling.
Mhm.
What do I need? What can I do to restore my like emotional well-being instead of handing it to them and hoping that they're going to make me feel okay?
Yeah, take charge for you. But, I think that as you talk about having our own stuff, for moms, especially who have just had their kids start to leave, it's really hard to even let yourself go to the place of like, oh, what would I want to do? What would I want to learn more about? Where would I like to spend my time? We're not used to giving ourselves permission to do things for us. And that can be a little bit of a learning curve to figure that out. But it's also really exciting to give yourself the opportunity and that gift and acceptance, like it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to do.
Well, and I think sometimes we just have to brainstorm like, what would it look like for me to just experiment with what I'm interested in? I do think that for years, most of us don't do anything that we're
Yeah.
interested in. And so when someone asks you, what do you like? You're like for me, well, right now I like pole vaulting because one of my daughters pole vaulting. I'm like, really, I don't even care about pole vaulting, but she does. So now that's what we care about. Oh, for the last couple of years, I've been really into cheer because one of my kids is a cheerleader. Oh, now we're into basketball. Now we're into soccer. Oh, now we have a tennis player. Right. And so whatever is theirs, their interest and their love, then it was our love. And so it's true
Hmm.
that our interest was them.
Yeah.
So that feels really like, whoa, wait a minute. Like now I don't know what to do. I think it really can be painful for people. Like,
Yeah.
so then now what? But we really can rediscover that and not in
Hmm.
a self-centered way necessarily. I hate to be so coachy that I'm like, it's all about me and I just have to meet my own needs. Like, I do think that it can be a spiritual thing of trying to understand, like, what are my gifts? Like, what are the things that God naturally put in me that I enjoy or I'm curious about? Like, what are the ways that I could share those gifts with other people? Um, and it can come in such a variety of ways.
That's actually one of the things that I have learned in this journey for myself is how much He wants us to find those things, right? He needs us to find those things because in doing those things, we're out in the world connecting with his other children and having an influence in other ways. And he will help us find those things because that's what he wants for us as well, to be happy and to be fulfilled and to be making leaving a mark out there with different people and different things that he wants us to do. So I think it's important to remember that, and that is something that he desires for us as well.
Yeah, I think probably the best time to start is when your kids are actually still at home, right? Knowing that they aren't always going to be at home. And so I don't know if it's a hobby or some, right? Or an interest or something, or making sure you are having a relationship with your husband. I think all of those things are helpful. I remember
Mhm.
saying to my husband, I should have been paying attention to you. You're the only one who's not leaving. And
Only
he was
one who
like,
stays.
yeah, that's true. Right. But it just seemed easier to go, you take care of you. You're an adult and I'll take care
Mhm.
of them kind of thing.
Yep.
And so even, but if they're all gone, it's never too late to start, right?
Yeah.
It's never. In
Yeah.
fact, I visited a woman this week who just moved into our state, and her husband died suddenly, was diagnosed with cancer, died
Mhm.
in 9 days.
Oh my
And
word.
she just moved into our state. And she said, and I'm looking forward to this is a space that's my very own. Like I didn't create it with anyone. And she said it was hard to stay in the house we were in together because I had so many memories of him there. And so she just said I was just ready to start something that, you know, kind of reflected the stuff that I'm interested in that I like. Anyway, I just thought that was impressive that she
Yeah.
felt like she could do that. Anyway, and she was delightful to talk to and so, you know, connected to her kids and her grandkids and her own interests and her own hobbies and I just felt like she was a really good well-rounded 72-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's young still and she's got some life left to live. And so how does she want to do that and really thinking through, you know, her husband died in their home and she said it was hard for me to be there. And
Yeah.
so she chose to do something different. Anyway, I just think we can really look at it and I think it can be a really spiritual experience to know what is my own stuff.
Yeah. I agree completely. It's been a neat experience for me to that journey, that spiritual journey with my heavenly parents to figure those things out. Okay, so that was number one, have your own stuff. What would you say the next thing is?
The second one is set boundaries. So some of my clients like don't hear from their kids and that feels hard. And some of them hear from their kids all the time. And
Mm.
their kids are saying, Mom, I have a flat tire. Mom, I don't want to go to school today. The hill is too steep. It's
It's
cold
too steep. It's
outside.
too windy. Yep.
Exactly. And so with those clients, then they have to set boundaries of like, all right, how much help am I willing to give? And so one of my clients just said, I don't answer the phone after 9 o'clock. Like, and so I let them know, like, I don't answer the phone after 9 o'clock. So if you have a problem that needs to be solved, like, you're going to have to find some other resources to help you. And she also learned how to not answer the phone the minute they call, just like that other client as well. She said, I found like if I'm doing something, I'm not gonna answer it right then. And I'm not gonna call her up back 6 times until I get a hold of her. I will call her back once. So she sees I tried to call you back, right? But not chasing them kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like you can see that I called you back and I'm right here and I'd love to talk to you. Let's just organize it because I was busy and I couldn't talk to you right then. And so when we have kids that maybe want to talk to us a lot, it's okay to set boundaries as well about like how much help we want to give, how much financial support we want to give. Um, and that allows them to see like you have needs as well. Sometimes I think our kids think we're just sitting at home waiting for them or waiting to help them. And so when we have our own things that we're doing, our own stuff that we're doing, and we set boundaries about, you know, even like when we'll babysit. So I have friends who are spending a lot of time babysitting their grandkids. And if you're happy about doing that, great. But if you're not, it's okay to tell your kids, like, I will babysit once a week or once a month, or I'm happy to take them overnight a couple nights a month, or whatever it is that you can do from a space that's really authentically what you want to
Yeah.
give, right? So that you're not building up resentment with
Yeah.
them. I,
Yeah. I think
I
we get scared to set those boundaries. We're afraid, like what this might do. But that's the truth of it is when we're doing something that we don't want to, resentment starts to build and that's worse on the relationship. That's than just being honest, right? Honest is kindness. Honesty is
right. And
kindness.
it
And
feels a little painful right
yeah,
at the start, but it's actually less painful and creates more connection when we tell the truth.
yeah.
And they might be upset in the beginning, and that's actually okay.
Hmm.
Um, my sister-in-law, her mom told me, so she babysits a lot for her grandkids. And she likes to do it, but she said I found my kids would come and tell me like they can't eat sugar and they have to, and I don't want them to have any screen time, and I don't, you know, they had all these rules for her as the babysitter. And
Hmm.
so she told them, if you want a babysitter that follows all your rules, you should hire daycare. I
Yeah.
am their grandma and I'm going to try to follow your rules, but there will be some days that we will have ice cream for breakfast because I'm the grandma. And you get to do fun things when you're at grandma's. Because if I become the babysitter, then I'm a disciplinarian with them. And I don't want that relationship with my grandkids. And so if you don't like that I'm going to be the grandma to them, then you should hire childcare. And I just thought that was a good boundary.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think about my relationship with my grandparents and I just adored them and it was because they never had to be the disciplinarian, right? They got to be grandma and grandpa. So, I mean, and that's
Yeah.
different for everybody. Some parents, some grandparents might want to be the disciplinarian, but
Yeah.
um
And so
yeah.
everyone gets to decide. But if
Yeah.
that's something that you're feeling all of a sudden, like it's not fun to be the grandma if I'm with them every day, all day, or if
Hmm.
I'm having to enforce rules that I don't want to enforce, then a conversation about that can be really, really
Yeah.
useful. Even if it is a little uncomfortable, it will still create more connection in the end
Mhm.
when we tell the truth.
Well, we don't like to be uncomfortable, do we? It's
No,
so,
but the thing is, you're still uncomfortable. So
yep.
you're either uncomfortable with the resentment or you're uncomfortable with telling the truth. And telling the truth is like ripping off a band-aid and then we can start healing.
Yep.
Whereas resentment is just a wound that keeps infection and keeps growing and lasts a lot longer.
Yeah. So true. And that's a great example, a good metaphor. The band-aids, the band-aids and boundaries, right? I guess they're important to have. All right. So have your own stuff, set boundaries. Number 3.
Number three is believe them. So I'm going to tell you a story about my own daughter, and I got her permission. She's like, fine, you can tell that. Anyway, so she and her husband got married last summer, and they were speaking in church just about, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And so when they were at our house for dinner, we were like, oh, can we come? That would be so fun to see you speaking in church. And she said, yeah, that would be fine. And so we planned on it and organized our own schedules to be there, to drive down to be there, because it's about 45 minutes away. And the night before, she texted and said, I'm actually going to be talking about you guys a little bit in the talk, and I feel kind of weird and uncomfortable having you there. And so we texted her back and said, oh, it will be fine. Like, that's okay. We just want to see you in that environment. We would just love to see you there. And then in the morning, I think she sent another text. And so I just called her and I could tell immediately that she did not want us to come. I
Mm,
could just, her voice. And I just said, you know what? We don't have to come. It's totally fine. If it's making you worried or upset, like it is totally fine for us to not come. And I got off the phone with her and I thought, there have been times when I was speaking or giving a lesson and I wanted to be able to speak freely. And if my husband would have been there and, or one of my kids, it would have been harder for me to just share that story openly. And so I totally understand. And even though I really want to be there, I'm going to believe her.
mhm,
And I'm going to honor that her feelings of not wanting me to be there are just as important as my feelings of wanting to go, right? Because I think what we often do is like, oh, it'll be okay. It won't matter. We're not judging, right? And we just sort of push our agenda because we really want to go and we really want to be there, right? Or we might say things like, you'll be happy when it's over that I came, or you'll be happy that I did this thing for you. When they say, no, I don't really want you to do that. And so I believe that the best way to build trust with them is to, when they tell you the truth, to really honor
mhm.
what they've told you. And when you honor what they tell you, they trust you so much more. So she came and she's like, I'll tell you all about it this afternoon when we come for dinner. And so they came and she let my daughter go. And so my other daughter was there and was like, it was great. Right. And so there's a tinge of like, I would have loved to have been there. Right.
Yeah.
But I also loved just hearing her and being so glad that she would be willing to tell me the truth. Right. Because when we don't listen to them or we get mad or get offended or hurt, right, then we're not a safe person to tell the truth to.
Well, I'm looking at it from your daughter's perspective, and I would have had a hard time calling my parents to tell them that. I'm not sure that I would have spoken my desires. And so, how you've obviously created a space where she felt comfortable that she could call you and tell you that, but also she had the courage to do it and know that that's what she needed. She took care of herself, and you took care of yourself, and that helps, create a relationship that is safe for everybody.
Right. And so we have to start practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And sometimes we'll do it wrong because sometimes we'll want to do something so bad, right? That we won't. But we can keep practicing, right? And we can keep practicing hearing what they're saying. And this same daughter, when she was little, it was harder for her to tell me like what she was thinking about. And so we would write in a journal back and forth to each other. And she would leave it on my bed and I would write in it, and then I would leave it on her bed. And so anyway, I just think it's really useful when you can hear and let them know like their opinion is valid and their concerns are valid. And so I don't do it right all the time, but I was really proud of myself that day because there have been times when I haven't felt heard
Mm-hmm.
and I know what that feels like. And so to give her that gift of hearing her felt really good to me, better than actually going and being there.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thanks to your daughter for letting you share that little story.
Yeah. And then the last one is just to trust them. I think sometimes we want to fix the problems right away, right? We want to make sure everybody's getting along, or right, parents like want the siblings to be close to each other. And so I've had clients like that they know that these two sons are not getting along, and so they want to intervene and fix it or talk to this one or that one. And recently my husband and I were talking about that and saying, like, if I wasn't getting along with my sister, I think that would bug me if my mom called and
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, you hurt her feelings. Like, I would rather my sister come to me and say, hey, right? And we could work that out on our own. And so I think sometimes parents insert themselves in ways that aren't connecting, right? When we try to go in and mend other people's relationships, or even go in and try to like undermine a decision that they're making. My daughter recently decided she's just graduated and she's going to move to Boston. And she told me that lots of people, when she tells them, they're like, why are you doing that? You're going to be so cold and it's so far away. And she just feels like people are kind of undermining her decision. And I just think, I don't know why we do that with each other. And I don't know if it's just small talk or, right, but we say things to each other that sort of make it feel like, what do you do? You don't know what you're doing. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we do it with our kids a lot. And I don't think it's wrong to say, here are some things that I would consider, and
Mm-hmm.
she and I have had conversations. Like, she's going with a couple friends, and I did that after I left college, and I think it was a really great. I didn't go to Boston, but I went to North Carolina, and it was a really good experience for me. So I've been all in, and her dad has been all in with her going. But it doesn't mean that you don't have conversations about, here are some things that might be hard about going,
Right.
and so you can talk through those kinds of things, but not in a way like, well, I don't think you should do that. It's right. I just think we give a lot
Yeah.
of opinions about things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know we do it from a place of love, right? I don't want it to be hard. I don't want her to struggle. And so I'm just telling her why I think she shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as we practice like sharing things like and noticing like we've gone through hard things and it actually was good for us. Like, it's actually okay for them to do it a way that's different than we would have done it because they're going to learn a lot of things from that.
Mm-hmm.
So just trusting that they're going to figure it out, and it may not be the same way we figure it out.
Well, I look at Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother's perspective, right? It's the same thing. They're trusting us that we're going to figure this out. And I think we can learn so much by trying to tap into who they are, to understand our Heavenly Parents' true nature, and that this is like they know that they've given us our agency. They're not going to tell us what to do, right? Like they'll help us see what might be beneficial, but they're not going to make us do anything. And we get to learn and grow because that's how they know that it will be best for us. And anyway, I love that. I think anytime that I'm discovering with my older kids that they don't want to be manipulated. They don't want to feel like you're trying to tell them what to do, but they do if you can approach them and here's some things to consider, like you mentioned. That's a totally different thing than this is what I think, or why are you
Yeah.
doing
And then
that?
if they don't consider them or they don't choose them, that you're just totally let
Hmm.
it be whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
can consider these things if you want. This is what I learned when I did these things, but not in a I told you so kind of way,
Hmm.
right? If it doesn't work out the way that everyone had envisioned, right? It's just okay.
Yeah.
Like we are still learning. And Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, they honor agency perfectly.
Hmm.
And if we are trying to be like them, then that's an attribute that we should be desiring to have as well, that we honor agency perfectly. And we don't aren't that good at it, right? Because we feel
Yeah.
like, oh, this is out of my control and I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And so let me control things. But the more we honor agency, there's just a respect that develops that is far more beautiful than
Hmm.
controlling the behavior, right? Like they might do the things you want because they're afraid of you or afraid of how you'll respond, but that's not actually agency,
Yeah.
really. Like, and that's not a really good relationship.
I think sometimes what scares people is they think, well, if I don't say something, if I don't tell them that I don't agree or whatever, then I'm condoning their behavior or I'm making it seem like it's okay that they're making this choice when I don't think it's the right choice for them. And that is, yes, that's one way to look at it, but it's obviously not, it won't be helpful to the relationship for you anytime that I don't know what I'm trying to say there, other than I guess I be careful in feeling like in thinking that not saying something also means that you're condoning it. I'm saying that backwards.
Yeah,
But
I
you
think
know
you're
what I'm
right.
trying to
Like if
say?
you asked your kids, how does your mom feel about this topic?
Hmm.
They can tell you.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
they know, right? You know how your parents feel
Yeah, for
about
sure.
things, right? Because they live that way. The way that they choose to live helps you know how they
Hmm.
feel about those things. And so I don't think we have to remind them every day. By the
No.
way, you know, I'm not really pleased about this and this and this, right?
Yep.
Right. And so I think it speaks louder when we can just show that we trust them and we love them and we know that they can get inspiration and that God speaks to them about their own challenges in their own life. And of course, people will say, but they're not listening to God right now. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay too, because He still tries to speak to them and as they go on their journey, he will still put light on their
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
And then they will get a chance to pick that up if they when they're ready.
Yep. I think in a way, us not trusting our children is us also not trusting our heavenly parents, right? It's, like we don't trust that they have their best interests at heart either. So when we can trust them, it's like trust is abundant all around.
Yeah, that's so good. I have a client right now who has a little boy who's 5 and he has really big emotions. And she said, and then when something goes wrong, he says his meanest words like, I hate this stupid idiot family, like the meanest thing he can think to say. And she said, I used to think, oh, like my parenting, like what would cause him to do that? I haven't parented him right.
Hmm.
And as we started coaching, we've just started going like, it's of course he feels frustrated and he doesn't know what to do with his emotions. And so he says the meanest words he can think of. Right. And as she's been like, of course he feels that way. She feels a lot more compassion for him. And then she said, and then that day when I was like, of course he's sad. And so she gave him a hug and he said, oh, mom, I'm sorry for saying those mean words. And he came to it on his own as she showed. compassion.
Yeah.
But when we say like, what's wrong with you or what's wrong with me, right? Then we pit ourselves against them. Anyway, as we were having this conversation at the end, she said, I just need to trust that God has a lot of confidence in his plan. And so I can have confidence in his plan, that that plan of agency is God's plan. It's not my plan, right? It's his
Mhm.
plan, and
Mhm.
he is confident in his plan. So I can be. And of course, when our kids are 5, we do want to teach them, and right? We don't just go eat what you want and watch what you want, and right. But the way that we choose to guide them can be out a fear-based way, or it can be a love-based way. And so I think when we do it from love, we guide them differently than when we do it from fear.
Absolutely. Brooke, thank you so much. I always feel so, I don't know, confident about moving forward in my relationship with my people, my adult children, which I feel like that I only have one that I wouldn't consider an adult child now, and that's a little bit strange for me, but it's also really exciting. It's so fun to watch them make their way out in the world and progress into what Heavenly Father, wants them to progress into. It's exciting. So,
Yeah, it's great. Well, I always love talking to you.
well, thank you. Before we go, Brooke, you got to tell people where they can find you.
So I have a website, brookeoniki.com, and you can go there. I'm actually putting more free stuff, more free content there. So that's nice because then people can go and get more help there.
Yeah.
And you can also sign up for a free 45-minute session with me there if you want to talk about whatever you're feeling stuck with. And I have a lot of clients that are not in that niche. I coach a lot of men also. So anybody that just wants to talk through something that they feel stuck in on. And then Brooke Oniki coaching on Instagram. I don't post as much on social media, but I do have a newsletter that I send out a little video tip every week, and then also just a post, just a written post
Yeah.
every week. So if you want that content, and the videos are all like usually 5 minutes or less, just some little tip to think about for the week. So if you want those, go to my website and then you can just sign up to be on my email list.
Awesome.
Get
Thank
those.
you so much. How fantastic would it be to have something quotable from Brooke in my inbox every week?
Oh, that's
I love
great.
it. Thank you, Brooke, for being with me today. Thank you for our listeners for being here, and hope you join us again next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.